Okay, so in this episode, we're going to focus on priorities, needs, and wants. But I think mainly we're going to focus on priorities here because that's going to be our main topic for this podcast, for this talk with once again Eric is back with me to help us come to some possible realizations or insights or whatever it may be on the topic of priorities.
Sounds good.
So I'll let you take it away. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, as we mentioned in the previous entry,
Mm-hmm.
we made these two big Stephen and I made these two big poster boards full of ideas, mapping out parts of human experience, if you will, maybe, or the human psyche.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing that we wrote down was priorities.
Right.
What is a priority?
Right.
And I think when there's priorities at stake or involved, it deals with choices. What's more important?
Mm-hmm.
The A or B. Just to say two examples there. A real life example for a priority might be, does someone want to study their books, for a class as part of their curriculum, or would they rather sleep and get rest? You know, both are important for someone who wants to finish their studies or the class they're taking, but which one wins out, so to speak, if you want to say win, as a
Right.
victory in a sense. But
Which one wins out? Win out meaning like, for example, win out means which one is the most popular choice, maybe, or the one that you're most likely to choose,
yeah, I think so. Based
maybe.
on one's priorities, you know, the priorities may determine what wins out, so to speak, or what is
Right.
chosen. What is
Yeah.
chosen is
By
the
wins
win.
out, we mean what's the final choice.
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah, that's probably better. Wins is kind of like a
No, that's a
colloquialism or a,
well colloquialism. We're all about that. I mean, win out is a great expression. Our viewers would love to hear that, or our listeners rather, not our viewers, but our listeners would love to hear those kinds of colloquial expressions.
and I hope that's the right word. Idiom might be another phrase someone could use to describe an informal type thing. But nonetheless, I'll stop talking. What is your idea about a priority?
Okay, my idea. Priorities. Yeah, that's a great question. What do I think priorities are? Well, I think priorities are priorities. Haha, right? Yeah, of course. Priorities are things that are more important to do compared to other things.
Hmm.
So, for example, it's a priority to provide enough to make a living, for example. Maybe it's a priority to put food on the table. It's a priority to eat, as opposed to play a game on our smartphone or our iPhone, for example. Which one's a priority? Obviously, eating's a priority for most of us, I would hope. Or I don't know if that's a good example. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so because people with who quote who are putting the food on the table, another idiom I think, providing for their family.
Right?
That's definitely something that's like it's compelling. It moves people. It motivates people.
Mm-hmm.
So if people need food in your family and you want to help them, it is important. It is a choice to do that, to earn money somehow to help them out, or use the money you have to help out people in your family who are in need, I think.
Right. And I think some of what we learn to be a priority, some of the ways in which we learn what priorities are is also it could be a social learning, societal, cultural. I mean, different cultures have different priorities. Different societies have different priorities. Even different neighborhoods may have different priorities. I don't know, but one thing I could say is like priorities, real versus imaginary.
Mm.
Now, if we talk about that, what is a real priority? What could be an imaginary priority? Are our priorities, can they be real and or imaginary, you think?
Yeah, based on our last entry that we did for this previous podcast on real and imaginary,
Mhm.
I think that priorities are kind of a projection or a prediction into the future. If I have a priority
Mm.
of becoming, let's say, a college professor one day, I have to line up my activities and my curriculum and maybe even interview people in some way to find out what I need to do to fulfill that goal. Let's say even goals could be somewhat similar to priorities, but that's yet another topic.
No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, yeah, because I think that with priorities, they are a means of attaining the goal. I mean, certain depending on what your goal is,
Mm.
there are certain things that you'll have to prioritize in order to accomplish the goal. So that's a nice tie in there, I think.
Wow, yeah, it's kind of like a projection, to have that goal. What are some of your goals in life, if you don't
Good.
mind sharing?
Yeah, I'd be happy to share with you. One of my goals that I can think of off the top of my head is like, for example, I would like to be a great visual artist, an illustrator, a painter, a drawer. Simple, simple things. I mean, it sounds simple, but it is simple. I like to make simple goals because you can always add to it and change it and reinvent it to make it your own. I mean, that's the basic, most simple thing. I see myself, for example, having a studio space where I can have all this artwork, large or small, large enough to take up a wall, small enough to fit in your wallet or your pocket, anything like that. And so that could be a goal, is to be this great artist and not to be necessarily recognized by society as a whole. I know that that can be a big part of it if you want to make it as an
Mm-hmm.
artist, to be recognized by a large following. But for myself, that's one of my goals, is to be able to enjoy the process. So that's the other thing, to enjoy the process of whatever it is I'm doing. Like right now, I'm enjoying the process of making this podcast. That's definitely a goal, to enjoy myself while I'm living here. I mean, maybe I'm getting a little bit too general here, but
Well, I think it's really specific and good that you mentioned about a visual artist and your passion for that
mhm.
and your goal. But it's like a flexible goal. It sounds like you're not gonna just take off in a certain direction. You kind of are keeping your maybe I don't know if you say would agree with this,
Mhm.
but it sounds like you also leave time for exploration. And which will probably well anyway. For my goals, I definitely want to help people in some way, but I don't want to be so stressed out that I lose my helpfulness to others because I realize if I don't take care of myself and my needs,
Mm.
then I start going, quote, downhill, another idiom there, or I start losing,
Downhill. Yeah.
instead of saying downhill, I should say, I start losing my joy in life.
Right. So when you say downhill for you, when you're saying downhill, it means you start losing your joy for life and interest in life and motivation.
Yeah.
You just
And
feel like energy goes down, motivation goes down,
I feel trapped. Like I
trapped,
get involved in too much at once,
getting
trying to help
involved in too
people
much at once.
in physical ways, helping them if they have to move locations
Mhm.
to change jobs or change homes. I want to be the guy to help them move those boxes,
Right.
or drive the boxes and then move the
And you
boxes.
have.
And yeah, and
Absolutely.
I have in the past done those things, but I need time to recover.
Right.
Which means that something else is at play. I'm not just some kind of spirit that can go fulfill goals and move through life. I have a body that needs to rest at times
Exactly.
and be refreshed. And sometimes the less obligations I have, the more productive I am in my writings, which I'd like to use to help people one day.
Right. So yeah, so one of your goals is to be able to help people and raise people up, motivate people, help enlighten people, help them physically or emotionally or mentally or intellectually, socially perhaps.
Absolutely, yes. And because I feel like I've been so well taken care of by my parents and by society and by the teachers and schools that I've been a part of
Hmm.
that not only do I enjoy thinking about these deeper matters, but it's almost like I owe it to the world to do something helpful. But that's a lot of pressure once again.
Pressure. So could we say, if I were to backtrack a little bit here,
Please do, yeah.
if I were to backtrack and say that what I'm taking from this is that priorities relate to our own personalized goals, or at least maybe I should say that whatever goals we have. So for example, like for your goal, you would make it a priority to find ways to help people. Maybe, for example, let's make a more specific example. So let's say your goal is to help people, and let's say you know somebody. Excuse me, I got my tongue tied up there. Let's say you know somebody who, has trouble or feels uncomfortable being sociable. Then you would come in and talk to that person and show that person that, there's a variety of different ways to be sociable. Am I right? Or am I?
That's a wonderful example. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's one of the things I've always done in the past is try to make people feel welcome and at home, even if I'm not the host. I could be in a classroom and see someone, a fellow student, who may not get something or just socialize casually with somebody and make them feel more accepted, more belonging. So yeah, that's definitely along the lines of my strengths to do that.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, so you've done that in the past where you've, say, for example, you're in the classroom and you saw somebody that maybe wasn't quite adjusting, and then you just make some casual small talk with the person and help that person feel, hey, this can be a pretty okay environment, okay place to be in.
Yes, that would be ideal. And I will say, just one little caveat or one little nuance is that in high school, it was much easier for me to do that, whereas in college or university, usually everyone knows why they're at the university.
Right.
And if there is someone who needs help, I may not be the most qualified to give it, but I definitely want to make sure if I can help someone feel more comfortable and more belonging, that I would love that, to do that.
Great. Well, that's a great example of how this could tie into priorities.
Yeah. So how are you holding up, my friend? I know you're the interviewer, and I just want to ask you, is there anything you want to add?
I'm holding up pretty well, and I think, to wrap this up, I like to say that, wrap this up, to conclude this show, this listening experience for our viewers, I will say that, so for me, if one of my goals is to be like this awesome visual artist that I already am right now, then what happens next is I make it a priority to practice and find time to do artwork for someone or something. That's how I can relate to priorities, real versus imaginary. And perhaps in the future show, in a future podcast, we can talk about the other topics like societal pressure, parental pressure, perhaps, or tribal tendencies. I mean, we're getting a little bit esoteric there. But yeah, we'll just close this up with that. So thank you for listening. Thanks to Eric for being here to talk with us, and we look forward to making more for you. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later.